In today's story, a young man injects himself with an experimental drug, and suddenly he begins to see things from afar and hears people from far distances. His entire five senses is enhanced and he becomes super powerful. Welcome to Movie Mix Recap. Please subscribe to enjoy more movie recaps. The story is about a young man named Darryl Witherspoon. He's an economics student at Stratford University. He is not as privileged as Scott Thorpe, because unlike Scott, he comes from a poor background where he struggles to pay his bills. He stays with his best friend Tim LaFlower in the same apartment. Tim is a punk rocker who has a hockey scholarship. Darryl is so broke that he goes to donate 4 pints of blood in one day and goes there with a different identity each time, so that he won't be refused another chance to donate. He also donates 4 vials of sperm in one day, which weakens him each time. But soon enough, he experiences S-twist when he enters a competition. In this competition, the winner gets a high-paying Wall Street job. Unfortunately for him, Scott, the rich kid, enters the competition, and Darryl is being humiliated since he does not have the advantage of Scott. At this point, he gets so desperate. He learns about an experiment to test a drug that enhances the 5 senses. This experiment had a lot of side effects at different stages. Darryl is so enticed by the pay because he needed the money, so he decides to accept it. Soon, he takes on the high-paying experiment. However, something strange started happening. He started experiencing some of the side effects, but they seemed to be to his advantage. He was able to hear from afar and see from afar with a lot of irritation because his senses were too sensitive and hyper. He didn't think that was a problem because he quickly learned how to control them. Darryl uses it to his advantage, and he impresses the competition's supervisor, Mr. Tyson. And he even joins the hockey team as a goalie because his reflexes were so fast. But Darryl soon becomes greedy and wants more, so he takes an extra dose one night, and suddenly, he begins to experience the side effects. He runs back to the experiment supervisor, Dr. Thomas Whedon. The doctor tells Darryl that as a result of the overdose, only 4 of his senses will work at a time until the drug leaves his body. Darryl continues to struggle with the hypersensitive senses. His roommate sees him in this condition and thinks that his friend is on heroin and gets worried about him. Darryl's blessing begins to turn to curse as he loses the hockey game because he lost his eye senses and couldn't see clearly. He also walks to his girlfriends and starts to misbehave. Her father turns out to be Mr. Tyson. Later again, he also acts clumsily because of the loss of the ability to see clearly during the basketball game he is invited to see with a client who needs to be impressed in order for Darryl to score some points with the Smythe Bates guys. Luckily, the client thinks Darryl is just funny and still goes ahead to sign a contract with the company. Along the line, Darryl asks his friend Tim to help him study for the next day's interview. At that exact moment, Scott studies for the test with the aid of his rich father's employees. Scott is seen answering a question correctly, but he does not know the reason behind it. He ignores the question. The next day, the drug finally leaves Darryl's system, and now all his 5 senses operate normally. The interview begins, and it comes down to Darryl and Scott. Scott is asked the same question he was asked last night. He answers it correctly, but when asked the reason, he does not know. Darryl quickly steps in, gives the correct reason, and scores the position of junior analyst at Smythe Bates. But in his speech, he confesses that he cheated by taking an experimental drug. Everyone's shocked at this revelation. A meeting is later called to decide his fate, and Mr. Tyson tells him that he himself started out in the mailroom, and Darryl should too. If he serves 1 year duty in the mailroom, he will score the position of junior analyst. A year later, Darryl is shown to ask his mom to move into a deluxe apartment. The movie ends with Darryl entering the Smythe Bates building on his first day, with a familiar-looking doorman standing. If you enjoyed this video, please do well to like, subscribe, and comment on what movies you want us to review for you. Also, turn on the notification bell icon so you don't miss any of our videos. Thanks, and see you in the next video.